What is good, Mexiplanners? What do you do when you turn on the faucet and there's no water running in your house? Well, unless you understand the plumbing situation here in Mexico, this can be a really crappy situation. So today we're gonna dissect the plumbing systems here in Mexico versus how it works in the US. And we're gonna talk about what to do when you run into issues with water running to your house.
Let me show you something.
Plumbing is very different here in Mexico. It's one of the systems you need to know whether you're renting a house here in Merida or if you're buying a house or building a house, you need to know how the plumbing system works. In fact, I would argue when you go look at a house for rent or for sale, you should be definitely checking out the plumbing system. And so there are several main components to the plumbing system that we're going to talk about today. So one thing to understand here in Mexico, or particularly in Merida, is most of the houses have en-suites, which means most of the bedrooms have bathrooms. So if you have, say, a 3-bedroom house, there's a good chance you're going to have at least 3 bathrooms. So in our new house, we have 6 full bathrooms. That means there's 6 toilets. That means there's 6 showers. There's 2 tubs. There's 10 sinks. It's just a lot of opportunity for there to be issues with water not running into the house or slow or low water pressure. And so it's important to understand how the plumbing system works here. So when you run into an issue, you can dissect that issue and actually figure out what the problem is. So if I was to break down the problems I've experienced with the plumbing system, they really fall into 4 categories. The first is just no water to your house. The second being a house that has very low water pressure. If you watch my video about the 3 things that I hate in Mexico, you'll know that one of those was the fact that we had very low water pressure in our last house. Well, that's been remedied in our new house. And so I'll tell you what we did or what was available at this new house that solved that problem. The third thing that you need to be worried about is no hot water. The fourth thing is simply toilets not filling up. So those are the 4 issues I've run into while living here in Merida over the last 2 years. And today we're gonna tell you what to check and how to figure out where in the system you might be having a problem. But the first thing we need to understand are the components of the plumbing system here in Mexico. In the United States, it's simple, right? We have a water meter at the street. From that water meter, we have a line that goes into the house, and there's generally a central cutoff valve located somewhere in the house that you can turn on or turn off the water from the street. The biggest issue that you might run into in the United States is that there's a leak in the line from the street to the house. We've had that issue many, many years ago at our first home that we purchased, and that was something that we had to be replaced. It had the old style pipe and we needed to go to new style PVC. Well, that was probably the main thing that happened or that happens in the United States. Here in Mexico, there are many different parts of the system. There's the water meter, there's the bombas, which are pumps. I'm gonna be speaking a lot of Spanish today because you need to understand the Spanish names for the components of the system so that you can describe to a plumber what might be happening. So the first thing that we need to understand is the Medidor, which is the water meter, the Medidor de Agua, which is the water meter at the street. The next component would be a bomba. And a bomba is nothing more than a pump, right? And we have pumps for many different systems, mostly water systems, but there are maybe many different pumps within your system for plumbing. The third thing you need to understand is a cisterna. A cisterna is a big holding tank that holds hundreds of liters of water. Notice I said liters and not gallons. Again, here's that metric system. If you watch my last video, you know that that metric system is something you need to get a handle on. And there it is. When you're talking about liquids, you need to know liters. And so the cisterna is a big holding tank that holds all of this water that's coming in from, say, the street. The other thing that you need to know about is potentially a pozo. A pozo is going to be a well, and that is the system where you draw water from the ground into your cisterna or directly into, in this scenario, every house here in Merida or in Mexico will have a tinaco. A tinaco is a system that lives, or a big holding tank that sits on the roof at the very highest point and is generally gravity fed, or generally delivers water via gravity. The tinaco is extremely important part of your system because you may or may not have extra bombas, you may or may not have a cisterna, but you absolutely will have a tinaco. So here in Mexico, you can get your water from really one or two places. The first place is going to be from the city, from a company called Japay, Japay, and Japay, and not Japay. Japay is going to be the company that is the water system here in Merida, Mexico. Now, Japay delivers water not every single day to every single home. Unlike in the US, where water just flows from the street and it goes into your home, and that's all you need is simply connection to the city water. That is not how it works here in Mexico. Every street, every day does not have consistent water flow, which is the point of having a cisterna. The water will flow in from your meter, from the street, to your pump, if you have a pump, because the water flow is not strong enough to feed the cisterna. So the cisterna is going to be your holding tank when your street or your particular area does not have water flowing or doesn't have enough water flowing in order to keep your house sustained for a few days. So the cisterna is going to be your holding tank. From the cisterna, your water will then go via a pump up to the roof. And so it goes up to the upper room, and the upper room is where you're going to have your tinaco. So this is going to be the most highest point in your house, is going to be a tinaco. And I'll show you pictures of what that looks like. But the tinaco sits on the roof. Now there's a couple of elements inside the tinaco that you need to be aware of. One is going to be a float. There's a float switch in the tinaco. And inside, what that does is when the water fills up, it hits this float, and when the float closes, it actually cuts off the pump that is down on the ground flowing from your tinaco. That's very, very important. I've actually had that float switch break and the pump not kick off, and so water was overflowing the tinaco. They flooded the roof, went into the gutters, and came out on the side of the house. It sounded like a huge rainstorm, but there was actually no rain. It was simply the tinaco being overflowed with water. And what would have eventually happened is the cisterna would have drained, the tinaco overflowed. If there was no water coming in from the street, then it would have eventually burned out the pump. So it's very important that you check that float switch. The first thing to check, however, if you don't have water, is to walk out to that meter and see if it's spinning. Turn on a faucet inside your house and see if it's spinning. If the water meter isn't spinning when there's an open faucet in your house, that means you don't have water flowing from the street to your house. And this was the case. I think the Kinetic Kennons found out this situation right after the storm, as well as several folks around Merida. They had power, they had internet, but they didn't have running water. And one of the main reasons they didn't have running water after Hurricane Ida was the fact that the water treatment plant didn't have power, or several of the pumps went out. And so that could be an issue if you have street fed water, that you don't have water in your house, is that your cisterna's drained, your tinaca's empty, and there's no water flowing in from the street. So that would be the first thing to check. Now, from the tinaco, your tinaco is going to be at the highest point in your house, and it's going to be gravity fed in most scenarios. That's how it was at my last two houses, is that the gravity was determined my water pressure in the house. Now that's only as good as the cleanliness of your pipes. If your pipes are clogged up with mineral buildup, which we'll talk more about later, but the water here is notoriously hard. If your pipes are clogged up, it's going to limit the amount of water pressure that you have going through to your shower heads, your sinks, your toilets, and things of that nature. And so with a gravity fed system, when you open up the faucet, say in the kitchen, the water comes down from the tinaco out to those open faucets, and that is where you get your water pressure. Now, one of the things that we did or found that this house has that we absolutely love is a whole house water pressurization system. And this is a system that keeps the entire house pressurized at a certain PSI so that whenever we turn on a faucet, we get excellent pressure. And I'm talking about that beat your back pressure that I love, that I talked about in my previous video. So we get outstanding water pressure here in our new house. And the only drawback to that I can see is the fact that that thing is constantly pressurizing the system. So anytime we open a faucet, open a shower head or what have you, it's constantly repressurizing the system or keeping the system up to pressure. And if there are any leaks or whatever, it's continuously running. And so the issue with that is that it uses power. So I'm going to be interested to see what my power bill looks like once, I get it for a full 2-month cycle, and how much of that is being used by this pressurization system. But we'll catch another video on that in the future. But there is a thing, there's as simple as a whole house pressurization system. There's even as simple as just having a booster pump. Many homes will have a booster pump that will increase the water flow coming out of the Tinaco into the house so that you have stronger water pressure. Once the water leaves the Tinaco, if you want hot water, that water then goes into a calentador, which is going to be your hot water heater. And that calentador generally runs on propane. So another system that's in your house is going to be a propane tank of some sort. My house has a big propane tank on top of the roof. It's actually 400 liters, which is huge. And that lasts us, well, I don't know how long that's going to last at this house, but our previous house, I believe it was half of that. And it lasted us about every 4 months. A propane tank is going to feed the natural or the propane gas into your hot water heater. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have here, every single day there's a big gusty tropical storm not tropical storm, but gusty winds and lots of heavy rain that roll through. This is the tropics. So that's a typical weather pattern here during the rainy season. And I'm talking about some serious wind gusts, right? And one of the things that'll happen is it'll blow out your pilot light in your hot water heater. One of the things to check, if you turn on your faucet and you don't get any hot water, but you have water, double check that your hot water heater is still working. Now, the hot water heaters are generally located outside of the house, generally by like the kitchen or inside of a utility closet or bodega. And so a storage closet. Now, the hot water heaters are, again, lit by propane. So be very careful. Let me show you something. Do not look down trying to see the flames and burn your eyebrows off. That is a very real thing. And I will caution you to be careful when lighting your pilot. So from your hot water heater, if you have water going into the hot water heater, you have gas going into the hot water heater and the pilot is lit, you should hear the boiler going on the hot water heater and actually producing hot water. A couple of things that can generally happen again with this gravity fed system, or even systems that aren't gravity fed, and it's just general maintenance here in Merida. We talked about this earlier, is that the water is notoriously hard. And what I mean by that is that there are just a ton of minerals in the water, and what you'll see is this thing called Saro, which is basically a calcium buildup of minerals that form. It's a white residue that forms inside of your shower heads, inside of your faucets, and it can plug up the tubes that go to like your toilet, and or a big piece can get caught inside of a filter in your Tinaco, all sorts of things. So regular maintenance is to simply take off your shower heads and clear them with white vinegar and or a product called CLR. CLR is the product that you would see the infomercial for at like Home Depot. Well, they have it here as well in Home Depot or any ferretero. And CLR is a solution that will clear the Saro out of your shower heads, your faucets, and etc. So that is something that we do probably once a month to keep our water flowing good. And particularly when you have just a gravity fed system, this can be a problem. In my previous home, I had a number of toilets just not fill up, right? Stop working. And really the issue was that from the supply line, from the wall to the toilet, the the tube was getting filled with Saro. So occasionally I would just keep an extra tube to change out in case, you know, that particular toilet stopped working. So this was something that happened quite a bit in our previous home, and it is all due to Saro, as well as just the water pressure being even worse than what it normally was because a shower head would fill up with Saro. So cleaning your pipes and your tubes and your faucets and shower heads from Saro is very, very important here in Merida. All right, so if you made it this far, you should now be an expert in the plumbing systems here in Mexico. If you had one aha moment like, man, that's what that is, or that's why that happens, do me a favor and bang that like button. Hit the subscribe button. We are just shy of 2,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there right after this video is published, so do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, Mexitplans Monty, I'm out.